Good morning. Welcome back. We'll start with opening prayers. Prayer book page 4. 皈依发心第4页。
达拉达瓦日西贝达诺巴日西贝格塔瓦达tham见见巴巴达就巴日西巴tham见见多西贝玛南卡达娘贝圣见tham见德瓦达德东阿达达nhờ đơ la na mê pa yang ta par tho pe san chơ ram bu tho par sa
愿对无愤恨之敌人、伤害之邪魔，以及一切阻断我解脱的正偏执者为主之。能虚空一切如母众生俱乐离苦，迅速的真阿耨多罗三藐三菩提。All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly may I establish them in a state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood.
တေယကျေတသမ္မာကျေကျေပတ္တလူငါယေသုံကေဝါလာကိုမိုက်ကျေပတ္တလူငါယေသုံကေဝါလာကိုတေတေရနေဇုံတေညမသန္တာသမ္ကျေပတ္တလူငါယေသုံကေဝါလာကို
是故知之的真佛果身口意三心三，知之是往身口意三心三，从今直至明日此时身口意三心三。Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind.
三界觉当所见觉南老三球八度大内加顺觉那个见所具备所能觉罗拉本所上界罗巴有
诸佛正法身中会直至菩提我归依，我以不施诸功德，为利有情愿成佛。In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge in the hill enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings.
玛南卡达娘贝sem je tam je deva tam deva jo tam tam bar jo je donga tam donga je jo tam travar jo je donga me be deva tam travar jo je Nyeren jadan nyedan darve tanyon la ne bar jorje
切众生俱乐极乐因，愿一切众生离苦即苦因，愿众生不离无苦之妙乐，愿永离爱正常住平等舍。May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion.
Saye Buju Soye Medo Dram Rav Len Yen Yede Jembande Sanje Yen La Megde Purvaya Rogo Namda Hindu Jevar Yo Gozong Yong Zo La Me Zo Nam La Deb Yen Ye Jen Jo Da Le Long Jo Nang Se Yong Ye La La Men Jo Ge Ngu Du Za Du So
香水土施花朵铺满地，圣山施昼日月为庄严，愿念佛沙衣着供养故，愿诸众生受用清净处，金香三身圆满上师中，怀内弥散真如意供养，无生之财万物悉受益，无上殊胜成就其次语。The ground is sprinkled with scented water and strewn with flowers. It is adorned with Meru, the supreme mountain, the four continents, and the sun and the moon. As a Buddha field, I offer it. May all sentient beings attain the happiness of the Buddha fields. To the lamas who possess the three kayas, I offer the outer, inner, and sacred offerings, with my body, wealth, and all that is visible. Please grant me the supreme realization, enlightenment.
Om Gurun Devandra Gunurana Mandara Pratisa Sova Simje Namje Sambada Sevda Jedavar Jejong Demon Devaye Jujeng Golo Godoso 一切众生之事慧根器不同而见之，共与不共大小乘，因情因情转法轮。Please turn the wheel of the Dharma, of the two vehicles and their combination, according to the dispositions and likewise the mental capacities of sentient beings. 当该头及小节的生中，因见么都对就帮助把社交能不打个就个小节教育下了个三叉呀，并且不了个人就被马人中国人的农民打打了，那是不可能就二斤不就能够三叉。多金钱金的罗那罗达马巴马拉就这干包巴莫着吧，就按照把个就拉马那能够三叉。是我们去年就跑完了，就是上就滚就我你让什么就跟我什么都在把早拉马那个三叉，把的早拉马我。大个交本地样的个人全部过来就从的高中头前我都在都说，他这人 rong ka ju ku luksu jenari rong ka ju ju pa na yo ba kam phwa ja cho ma ti ko la ma he ya re ba so ka ta la tini ten du thoma ta la pho ngon la che ngon ro bu chu ngem jong je ba ka tat je lo do nam yu ko te se he li ku luksu ndo do tin ten du da je dang lo do nam yu da cha ma ka ha go ka re ye na ta thoma ta la che sap je ma dang jam do ma do den do je he ya na
So today will be the instructions on the Jikung Kagyu Poa tradition. You could say it's from the lineage of the Jikung Kagyu, and it's the Jaktuk, or the inserting of the blade of grass through the crown Poa, that's the name. And so traditionally speaking, whenever we begin the Poa instructions, it is customary that we always begin by speaking about the 4 thoughts that turn the mind in order to arouse renunciation. And so, of course, all of you are already quite familiar with the 4 thoughts. However, so as not to skip any of the sequential order of the traditional way of teaching, I will at least go through them briefly here.
我们今天开始教授子贡噶举的破瓦这个法门，特别是子贡噶举传承的，也就是甲处马或者是插草的这个仪轨。一般在我们教授开始的时候，我们会先教授转心释法，但我相信在座的各位绝大多数的人对转心释法非常的熟悉，所以我不会花太多的时间来解释。只是因为跟依循传统的关系，我们会很快的讲一下转心释法，以帮助我们有正确的发心跟念头。
但南军的罗道那边过来西的有那样参参的这真送的事情的，你去三万着往参参的样着，用个人这啥个拼图用人。多那的罗道那边个这西里的古板着我的了的。ngimjong ko lo na thong ro je ro ta ba tha tende je se na tini chu kan lan jo na yang te ngone da na ka je kar se go ro je dum den da thong ta ba je ong ka sa re
mo je lo na thong de thap se on de lo na thong a se on de ji cha shi shi da ji mo bo ma ta be se
ri te ma da bo ko ma ro tin ta ya
So usually when we talk about the 4 thoughts that turn the mind, even though it's functioning kind of as a reminder for us, sometimes it helps to almost like inspire a new understanding that arises in the mind that maybe we didn't have before, even though we thought we were familiar with the 4 thoughts. So in any case, the main reason why we talk about the 4 thoughts that turn the mind is to bring forth the arising of renunciation for samsara and to kind of decrease the tendency to get totally caught up in the plans of this life and to kind of bring forth more of an understanding, appreciation for impermanence. Because when we have this, then there really is some genuine result coming from the practice, and so then this is something quite fruitful to talk about.
一般我们讲转心释法的时候，它可以提供我们，就是提醒我们，对激励，提醒我们修行的这个目的，也通常也可以激励我们对一些法有一个新的理解跟认识，从新的观点来看。最起码呢，我们可以升起对轮回的这种出离心，了解到无常。那如果说能够帮助我们如果能有这样子的理解的话，那对于法的修法呢，就能够更深入，有更多的了解、体会。
tene telo lodo na gi tambo nga cho ta tamjo ne ka wa la go yorwa nga tesi de ta nga chu ta te lutin ji to yo ba de be za chen bo re le lao chu ni tene ma re te ngo zhou se yo re ngaran zungune kokap za chimbo ji tata tobyoris te ta pan rhe ja de na mangbo la gurwa yena dor de na pe tang gyo chang sun ko goni song go yorwa ta pe na che rubar tang nya shen ge pe ji yuan do na san ji jom din de song ye wa re mulu tobya ngune tata nga chu na yin je mulu ji togo na den ru ka le ka bo yoris re ta te 산지 그 송바지 때 산지 그 송바라 참아야나양 료당 장 때니 그 거는 직선으로 당 야너와 단 로아를 조건하는 뭐 로직 토고 요러와 로아를 족텔라 다 만용 같이 요래 냐와 예다도 좀같이 다 만슈드네 요서가 요러와 얘나 때 무슨 통토고 요마 대 파야 다다 무슨 통통한테 돈로도 장순 바래 간저 망보요래 다때 빠진 아주 시그래 던저 망보 저게 나네더니 뭘로 터보러 때엔도 뭘로 빼 뇽뇽 차가 요래 들었어 너나 장고원세나 되니 운에서는 뭘로 톱세대 담조금 뭘로 말해와 맞아 나기 말해 제 스마가 탈바 돈이도 시그요 말해 장거 고네나 틴라 나온다고 차대요래 다 교거 고네나 마라초나 잉게티 멀루직 토고나 텔라 경홍송 그 수나 망보지 싸고래 든두지 쩍당 나랑서 다다다게 다 로아 먹게 디나나 다 수남사니 망은다서 먹게와 그래대 쇼치에도 든두지 쩍대나 멀루테 톱사하다마다 바지 하고래 대인도 나랑 속 멀루텔라테 럼보치 다고요 담조 멀루 럼보치 저땅거 럼보치 담조 간거 잖더니 인진도 매바고 문에 다는 그 멀루 럼보치데 다다가 졸려 요래서 요래 대인도 다 가장 라바나이 가르스는 든지 자진 벌스나 토마 매바고 두니 좀 맞아 사와지 나춘디 루딘디 되니 다 럽타야 그 빼고갑 쳔보 요래서 텔라티는 되는 뭐지라고 요래.
So, when we talk about the four thoughts that turn the mind, the first of these is contemplating how difficult it is to find this precious human body, this birth that we have found, characterized by the freedoms and endowments. And actually, this body that we have found is something so incredibly precious, so valuable, and it's not at all easy to obtain this. And so, of course, regarding the preciousness and the rarity of this precious human birth, there are so many explanations given in the teachings extensively. But in summary, you can kind of get an understanding of the difficulty of achieving this precious human body by looking through three vantage points. The first is through metaphors, that is, analogies, examples. The second is through numerical comparisons or statistics. And the third is through cause. Actually, cause comes before statistics. So metaphors, causes, and statistics are numerical comparisons. And so, you know, the cause, the metaphor would be like, for example, the story of the blind tortoise managing to somehow insert its head through the hole of a yoke floating on a vast ocean. And that is spoken of in the sutras by Lord Buddha. But even if we don't want to just look at Buddha's examples that he gave us, to get an idea of how difficult it is to achieve this precious human rebirth, we can look at statistics or the numerical comparisons, for example. So, like, if you think about the fact that we have managed to be born in the human realm and achieve a human body, out of all the 6 realms and all the possibilities we could have taken birth, and think about how many sentient beings there are populating all of the 6 realms of sentient beings. And it is said that actually the biggest number of sentient beings populates the hell realms and the hungry ghost realms. But we can't see these with our naked eye, so let's just leave that aside for now, and let's just look at the third of the three lower realms, the realm of the animal realms, which is the third most populated realm of sentient beings. And we can get an idea just by looking at how many beings populate the realm of animals in comparison to how many human beings there are. And so among these, we have attained a human body. So obviously humans are much fewer than animals. So that's already showing how difficult it is statistically to be born as a human. But now let's look at all beings who have a human realm. Just among the human beings, not everyone who has attained a human body has a precious human body, a precious human birth that we have, because many people out there don't have any belief or knowledge of the afterlife, of reincarnation, of any desire for liberation from samsara. So it is thinking just in terms of statistics and comparisons, we can see how rare it is to find this precious human body. And also to have a body and a birth as we have, like us, we had to have already gathered tremendous merit. Quite a large number of meritorious accumulations had to have come together in order for us to have found this precious human body. And if you look around now and you see just in the human world, like how many people are engaging in that degree of merit making and virtuous action. If you look, it seems most people are engaged in non-virtue, and so then you can kind of get a sense of like who is likely to again find a human birth out of all the human beings now. It's something also that shows how difficult it is to find. And so we talk about the human body as a precious human body, Milu Rinpoche, the precious human birth. And so the reason why we call this precious is, like I was saying before, the reason why is like a precious jewel, something so difficult to find. The reason why we say this is a precious birth is because, like I was saying yesterday, in this lifetime and in this body, with this vessel that we have found, we have this one chance to accomplish the one thing that we have not managed to accomplish in countless previous lifetimes without beginning. Now in this body we have that chance, and that's what the reason why we call it precious.
我们讲到转心释法，第一个就是人生难得，我们能够具足这些自由暇满的人生，这是无比珍贵、无比难得的。在世上有许许多多的法教都来解释这个珍贵难得的这个道理。比如说有用比喻的方式，用因果的因来解释，或者是从统计数据数字来解释。这三种方法来解释。比如说譬喻品，我们曾经讲过，就是好像大海中的一只盲龟，在海中多久以上浮起来吸一口气，可是它怎么有机会在这个茫茫大海中把头钻到一个木轮这个小洞里面？这是来讲这个是比喻。从数量上来说的话呢，我们今天得生为人道，可是相对于其他的众生，在其他五道的轮回众生来讲，我们是少之又少。数量六道之中，数量最多的是地狱道跟恶鬼道的众生，只是我们肉眼看不到，所以我们姑且不拿他们来做比喻。如果说我们比喻畜生道的众生跟人道的众生来讲的话，那畜生道的众生是比人道多得多，而且况且身为人道众生，也不见得都有能够暇满完整的人生。那我们今天如果能够生到我们这样子很周健全的这个身体的话，人道必须有许许多多的功德，才能够让这辈子我们能够得生人道。反观，我们应该反思我们现在在这一世里面所作所为，我们积的多少功德，是真的能够导向将来再受生人道吗？所以我们有一个非常珍贵来讲这个道理。那我们讲说 我们一般讲说仁波切是人中之宝，是一个非常珍贵之宝。那么我们昨天也有讲到，能够受生人身的这个机会是非常的少，非常的珍贵的。
对对，他等着扎进步的，扎进步的大有的，对因那样他罗多尼巴的个些个人，他搞对面都西个嘛的是，没大把的是，对不对？他们这没大把人都。搞对面都搞对线都修嘛嘞，是些悄悄的，搞对那些是吧嘞是啊，这个拉文过的吧，他搞的是呢，等着的是呢，他老出干着点呢，些事的吧，但你期间还讲忙不的吧，期间还讲忙不的，初间别扭扭的，常常让初间这样判决呢，期间强着有的，他告诉我。等等都大扎钱不有把的，大干都没把强着下过嘛的是个有的，的上当就定10万年很多送钱没送有的吧，3年当把多你送我的量实际个laptop个嘛的是，等都把多我的laptop个的，实际个卡特是图个嘛的。참선라 나랑 저 시계 요라 때 마삼산이 마마고 현도도 진 로자 진 저거 현도도 코란솔라 마음번 차기 망보 요래 참말 뺀 차기 망보 요래다 차기 망보 요나 양 코란소 티 발도 등 흘러 내오는 그 차기 요 말아 대는 가서 찍바래 대는도 다 세마다 바인 베선나다 다다 짜진 보고 멀리도 톱 요래대 teni kokap tamzai mazai na teni te tonlo yung gari isi ga yore nipa dek.
Such a precious and valuable opportunity we have, and yet now we come to the second thought that turns the mind, and that is remembering impermanence. And that basically means that we really don't know when we will die. And so understanding that death is uncertain, then if you really think about it, there are so many possible conditions that would make us die, causes of death, and so few things that would sustain our lives. And even those very things that are meant to be life-sustaining could also themselves actually become the very causes of our death or catalysts of our death. And so even though we have this really precious opportunity and this precious birth, we don't know how long it will last for us. We have a saying, we always say, like, we really don't have any, guarantee whether tomorrow will come first or the next world, the next life will come first. In other words, whether we will see the bardo before tomorrow or whether we will have another day on this body, we don't know. Nobody can say for sure. Many people, they don't expect to end their lives at a certain point, but because of unexpected, accidents or some kind of unexpected conditions, all of a sudden their life ends. And many of these people, they all have so many plans for the future. It's like unfinished business and plans for the future. None of them were planning to enter the bardo on that particular day suddenly, but we're all like that. And so because this life is impermanent, then now if we don't really make good use of grasping this opportunity while it presents itself to us, then we could easily lose it, and that's the second of the four thoughts.
那我们现在有这么珍贵的机会，还能够得到人生，我们就要讲到下一个转心释法的第二念，就是诸法无常。那么有许多这个为了要维持我们的人生呢，我有许许多多的东西，我们把它拿来长养我们的生命，维持我们的生命。可是同时，他们也有可能是造成危害我们生命的这种毒素。那这些都是不定的。我们有一句话，常听人家讲一句话，不知明日先到，或者是无常先到。比起明天来讲呢， 我们不知道是不是马上会跑到中阴去，马上死亡了。有一些人呢，就是在活得好好的，就突然就死亡了。在这一生中有许许多多的计划，想要做的事情都没有办法能够完成，留很多遗憾。这生命是无常的，所以我们要有这样子这个体认。
다 로도슨 바든 코가 내 당시에 요래. 코비 동아시에 요래 쓰고 요래. 등원에서는 코비 내 당시에 요래. 코비 내절. 칭아 그 저랑 졸음에 현황로 건 동아 던들이 쓰고 요 말어. 다 희소나 들어가서 봐 매혀왔던 초간바나 이 매바 찬도 요 말에 쓰고 요래. 레그 지순다는 저와 인바지 랭고를 쓰고 요래. 다체와 라나 로사든 코와게 로아렉족 디나나노리 스텔로스 제바진 로사 로가 말했어요 요래 텐단 코와 로아렉족 내당데 간들이 다티콜라 다 동아지랑 인레스요 요래 코랑 코와 코랑 제 차바 가르쳐 그래요 제 차반도 지지 동아지 쓰고요와 텐드 내갑 그 단난 그 대원 친생 점 요래테 이나양테 람산 요와 때문에 대양 파동하는 전도와 마도케 마슈의 동아리 이나 창장의 단난 그 대원 친생의 조양 요라 이 코랑 동아 그 찹대버라 얘인도 람산 파동하는 전도고 요레스 근데 그 안에 되네요 마치 좋은도고 요래 다치 땅코와 근도와 니 송송 라소바나나 동아 빼망보르와 동아 코나르와 토리성 다 만다올 자야나 다당에 로바 나지르와
무엇이가 단다디 벌웨기 동에서 문이 전에 벌웨네 동을 시기에 문이기다 체등 안에 아니 카레 셴난고야 다오지 말에 셴난고에 기치라 소용
말에 가시에게 딱바 동아디히는 쪼치요 장군도와 그 코라 내당시게 요런 코가 내당시
So the third contemplation is talking about the state of samsara, the nature or the state of samsara, the cycle of existence. Sometimes it's referred to as the discussion of the suffering of samsara, but really it's just talking about the way things are in samsara. It's not like just for the sake of trying to, terrorize and scare you and all the time talking about suffering. Some people say, oh, how come you're always talking about suffering? It's always so morbid talking about suffering. But it's not that we're just trying to bring you down by talking about suffering. We're just simply pointing out the actual state of things. That is the nature of samsara. So that's really what it means. So the state of samsara, the nature of things in samsara. And so when a person dies or when beings die, it isn't like, fire being put out or water just evaporating into air and disappearing. When we die, our consciousness goes on and has to follow after whatever karma we accrued. And by that karma, we must take rebirth, and the destination of our birth is going to be somewhere within the 6 realms of samsara, nowhere outside of that. And so anywhere we are born within the 6 realms of samsara, the very nature of that is suffering. And so we talk about the suffering that is all pervasive, the suffering nature that pervades all conditioned things. And that really means, like, even though we might occasionally have some kind of superficial, like, seeming happiness, like these moments of happiness that occur, temporary happiness that's very superficial level. But even those moments of happiness, they don't last and they themselves turn into suffering. The reason is because even those moments of seeming happiness, these superficial moments of temporary happiness are themselves totally pervaded by the nature of suffering, and therefore they have nothing but to turn to suffering. And so we're talking again about within the higher realms, because in the 3 lower realms, of course, it's sheer suffering. And then within the 3 higher realms, like human beings, we have these temporary moments of happiness, but those also give rise to suffering.
转心释法的第3个就是轮回过患。那我们讲到这个的时候，我们只是很单纯的指出这个轮回的这个现象，而并不是说要吓唬大家，或者是说啊，这样一切都是苦的。有些人可能讲说，为什么你们佛教都是只是讲苦呢？在这边我们只是单纯的指出轮回的这个事实。人在死亡的时候，就好像把水倒入到地面上，然后马上蒸发不见一样。这是就是事情是这样子的。当我们今天就在讲说到经过中阴去投生或受生的时候，不免就是说在6道里面这个轮回。那只要是在轮回呢，它的本质就是苦的，这个苦是遍布一切的。即使有的时候我们有短暂的很表层的这种快乐，这个时间来讲也是非常的短暂，而这个快乐呢，也终究会转成痛苦的。那这个以上所讲的这些，主要是指的上3道或善道来讲。至于下3道或者是恶道来讲，当然他们都是远远是苦，更多于乐的，都是苦。
他罗多一把的来军这是话的，但可话个那等这个东安忙不就搞着是那用过有人是呢，他来了头的有人是有人，对对，他。给完了点的地方用过有的，这中间的用的，第是呢，等于他马上的东海用有的哇塞，来军这，就他来军这个那叫了忙不些呀有的，他我让就突然搞是，他可话个让人等这样的，他我他，谁个都是你的老的小气用过有的哇，他了他三节我把米工作是呀，当破完娘来是呀。就这点吧。
And 4th is the contemplation of karma, the law of cause and effect. And so, what is the reason why there is all this, so much suffering in samsara? Well, it is said it is because all this suffering comes from our karma. And actually, independence upon virtuous action, happiness should be there. But since there are so few beings who are actually engaged in virtue, that's the reason why, therefore, we see much more suffering than happiness in the samsara. And so when we think about this, then we think about the we think about the nature of samsara. And then that gives rise to this strong feeling that we must accomplish the way to freedom, liberation. And so then that is what will motivate us or inspire us to want to practice. In this case, practice the meditation and accomplishment of the state of Buddha Amitabha and the Poa practice.
那么第4个转心释法的第4个就是业果不变，那一切都来自于业。那这个也是让我们决定我们在轮回里面要能够如何能够获得自由或解脱。那我们可以做的是透过修行、禅修，或者是修持阿弥陀佛的婆娃法等等的这样子的方法来做。
他这些就点破瓦是的了这当破瓦的当把的他不就那的就把他们那有的因为他这不能光破起么是这个样的是个有的这他给他是个不准是卡的意思呢当我个女把切从实际的娘龄心情了来的话这里中感觉的那的当破完娘那个的这把搞的时候准备童年的就嘛接班着的也不用都个啥的这里得了的那中破的没啥个这是那个情感切完着就冷门间真的是个多这里不呢那的破完切门的 로존이라는 팀마를 반 촘추신데 자고요래. 촘추도 다 로존이라는 팀마를 마도 난거요 말에다 믹스하게 제도로 라마타할라다 다고 난다고 유저와. 촘추도 로존이 절로까 주였으니. 절로고 모델라. 절로를 야파저 절로사. 텔라담 포아테 된다스나 바 촘추신 난거도. 디가즈베 만도 초침보 쓰기 요래 된데 된 포와 치모 토요래 맨라 된도글로
So now regarding the poa, the transference practice, all the in the teachings in the sutras and tantras and all the lineages of Tibetan Buddhism, there are practices of poa. However, in Tibet, the Drikung poa, the great poa, the Drikung poa Chimbo of the Drikung Kagyu tradition is quite well renowned. It's quite famous. And the reason why the Drikung poa, great poa of the Drikung tradition is so famous is because, first of all, the degree of the power of the instructions and practice really depends a lot on how many people are actually practicing those teachings. And in the Drikung Kagyu tradition, there are uninterrupted signs of people actually accomplishing the Drikung poa, and so it's said to be of tremendous blessings because uninterruptedly there are continuously practitioners who actually show the signs of reaching the fruition of the poa practice. And so this is something that is really known to have great signs of blessings, and so it's really regarded as something quite special and precious. And it's called the Great Poa, Poa Chimbo, because only every 12 years in Tibet would this poa teachings and transmissions be given publicly to larger audiences. Only one time every 12 years. And although, to the lamas and the monks in the monastery, the poa may very well be given quite more often. But when it is opened up to the larger audience of the public, that is something that only happens once every 12 years, I think, on the year of the monkey. And so it is something quite special. And people really value and appreciate the preciousness of those times when the poa transmissions are given publicly to larger audiences. And then that's why it's called the Great Poa. So they're given to the large audiences.
至于破瓦来讲呢，或者是千世呢，在经序跟密序里面都有提到，但是比起他们来讲，子贡的大破瓦是非常有名的。我们知道，这个一个法教的这个力量呢，是往往是根据修持法的人数而定的。在子贡噶举的传承，有许多的修行者不间断的来修持这个破瓦而得到成就的，所以这些都是子贡破瓦有特别加持的这些征兆。之所谓讲说大破瓦呢，是因为每12年才给大众一次的教授。当然在庙宇中，对于这个出家的僧人来讲呢，比较常给这种教授，但是给大众来讲呢，只有在每猴年的左右才会给大众，所以因为一教就是给很多很多的人，所以也因此叫做大破瓦。
等这个松仁罗军找的那古人不这个不了，等这南北吧，等这几个人多，这罗军呢，等这有的，当古人不这不了，偏呢，等这上那个全国，他干啥？ 노단 덴바 mambola 덴데세네 나네 드니 단 참름 냐네 코나 세도고 라 요르도고 요로티 값수 덴데지게 값수 데 추송 데진고 롬보 만라 녀마사와지 요레선도 드니 데그 코란그 데사데 사자 강바 카닌도 예사래와 드니 딘 강바데 임바데 나데네 코란 잘라지 잘라 용 값수 티 값술로 당텔라서 요 말와 휴마빠는 로고리 티 강화 독자 가시 예사래 던데스 휴마빠는 데니 나콩나는 잘라지 자로 값수 데는 매제 말롱 디진선에 된 강바의 책송을 했어 강바 책송도 되니 데나다는 다 코랑 그 밤마 조제만 망보 요사래 teni ta kamba ko hyo la teni tundro ta tang la so ba ko tundro yang mambo yo sare teni toka tang to so la korang ko phama tang korang ko te ta nana la ka sini tendro ma mambo yo sa tana te tsama chek so re sa do te tsama korang ta me long chek so wa te jin se chek so de ko pe donga chenbo tenin sena ni mokowa ni ka khala chune ma za koran chi ko ten sena tini donga chembo samjim cha pa ten song de ka tini ti donga de sarwe ka tabla de inchsong de jing goro ro bo chela ya hyuan tin risa chsong de jing goro ro bo chela hyuan tin ne tini de ge jin sena tini goro ro bo chela ta tin pho wa de dam ba de bol pe tu la ke pa ban ro gong jero wa tene ngusu sanje oba me betong la juncho chi pemne tene di dambate sine ma apola peparis tene lando
Mori di shuma de pane di ki kenge an khora me di khangwa sik song di ga so khora dro do ne chi
koran ro cha sa de de
ne 맞아 So the story of how this like Poa lineage first came to be, it was given by Guru Rinpoche. So Guru Rinpoche came to Tibet and turned the wheel of the secret Mantrayana Dharma to many disciples who were fit vessels to receive these precious teachings. And so, and then these disciples went on to entirely just do retreat and practice their whole lives. And during this time, a minister of King Chisong Detsin named Nyangla Nyima, he had like two houses at that time, and he was going to one of the houses to find something. And it was dark, and at that time, of course, there was no electricity, so you had to just have little lanterns with flames burning to get like a candle and be able to see your way with the little fire flame. And on his way in, like he dropped a candle or something happened where like the flame caught fire, and because of that, actually the whole house ended up getting engulfed in flames. And this was after he had already kind of turned to leave, so there was nothing he could do, and the whole house was engulfed in flames. And it ended up that his family was there at the time, his parents, and also many other people in the house. It had many stories, actually, many levels on the house. In the lower level, of course, there were all the animals that they kept, like the horses and the cattle, or livestock rather. And then up on the higher floors, his own parents, and then his, some of the people who were workers and so forth. And so all of the house and everyone inside it burned. And after that, he was just filled with like overwhelming suffering and grief. He was grieving so much. He felt terrible. He couldn't sleep. He wouldn't eat during lunchtime. He just couldn't eat. He couldn't bring himself to do anything. He was utterly despondent. And at that time, King Chisong Detsin went to, request Guru Rinpoche, beg Guru Rinpoche to do something to help his minister, who was just completely and totally filled with anguish over what had happened. And due to that was like the condition, the catalyst. And that Guru Rinpoche knew now was the right time to bring forth, to reveal the Poa instructions. And so then Guru Rinpoche, through miraculous power, went to right into the presence of Buddha Amitabha, received the instructions, returned to Tibet, and brought it back.
那有关破瓦传承的这故事如下。这个莲师是把密圣金刚圣带到这个西藏的主要的一个始祖。那他在当时，他在西藏有许许多多的弟子都在修法，其中有一个就是藏王这个赤松德赞。那在赤松德赞在位的时候，他那是有一个大臣叫做尼玛。那因为他有2个房子，所以他有一次到了其中的一个房子，然后因为晚上很黑，所以他就点了蜡烛烛火， 那他离开的时候不小心烛火掉下来，就开始烧房子。可是他那时候已经离开了，可能一开始没有注意到他已经离开了，所以他没有办法再回过头去做任何事，因为他不知道有这么严重。那当时这个房子里面有许多的人，比如说他的自己的父母呢住在楼上，那一些牲畜牛马等等的都在楼下都被烧死了，所以这个大臣尼玛就非常的痛苦，他痛不欲生。这个藏王呢，赤松德赞也不知道该怎么办，所以就到莲师那边去请求帮助。那莲师便用他的威德力来教的这个破瓦，他用他的神变力亲自在阿弥陀佛面前领受到这个法教，然后再来教当地的人。
这里我们说这个托马的了，龙巴尼玛吉波了难日子，龙巴尼玛吉波了破个当巴的难呢。这里库兰干破个当阿的了地呢，这里等下干巴难呢。每个村里现在就对都错了，听破个娘里的过呢，可能个这他不是了，这过头那个大着松啥的，这里得了的呢，可能个东西的他把穷了松，这里古人不这个大东的破的马贝尔对了，那有马里是这样就，其他几部个娘里是差不多就是那个这了，得都把过来松啥的哇。这里听破个当巴的，大的达拉干部是热的有了哇，干部把有啥个的热的个来的人错的，错门站那波是门了门站那波，老公东错的有了，错的呢得了把过来送啥的，达拉干部个是我这人错门站那波是话的有了，门站那波。听说的大东有的，他那得了把过来送呢，我们把这个把这说这，嘛，公安那已经的，龙坡你妈个听那个就了，他那得的白家也啥了。达拉干部是。达拉干部是他的大部有啥个公法的有了吧？公法的热的了，门了达拉干部了我这。
And so at first, Guru Rinpoche only gave the Poa instructions and transmissions only to this minister Nima, Nyangla Nima, Nyangla Nimara. Only gave it to Nyangla Nima, the minister. He did not give it to anyone else. Following practicing these instructions, then the minister was able to actually, there were like genuine signs that he had been able to go and liberate the minds of all the beings that had died in the house when that burnt down. And so this helped to lessen his grief and suffering. And then Guru Rinpoche then told him, now this Poa, the time is not yet ripe for it to be revealed to others publicly yet. So once you are finished with the practice, then you have to take this and conceal it as a dharma, as a hidden treasure. And Guru Rinpoche told him to go to Tala Gampo. It's where the monastery seat of Gampopa, and it's a mountain called Tala Gampo, and there is a lake there called Mandal Nakpo, literally translates as Black Mandala Lake, called Mandal Nakmo. That lake is still there today. And he said in this area to hide this teachings as a treasure, as a dharma. And so following Guru Rinpoche's instructions, he did just that.
那么当时莲师从极乐净土的阿弥陀佛那边亲自领受这个法教之后，他回来就把它传给这个大臣尼玛。那尼玛学成了之后呢，他也利用这个婆瓦法呢，解脱的 那些被火烧死的，在他家被火烧死的一切的众生，所以他自己的痛苦就有所减轻了。当时莲师也嘱咐尼玛说，这个广传这个法的时机还未到，你不可以教给其他人，所以指引他到这个达赖干波这个山呢，有一个黑曼达湖，或者是 Mandar Ningpo。那这个地区其实就是后来这个冈波巴大师这个传法的一个地方。那这个尼玛就把这个破瓦法呢，把它弄成这个伏藏法，弄成伏藏，藏在这个地方，这个黑曼达湖这个地方。
这个基啦，他罗帕切加查卡些这个基啦，人多，这个丁节都做的大老家没，这基啦，这里龙波尼玛个接哇，你大三节时候就送我的，这东人空。这里可能了的破瓦个大几去的跟这瓦进步有送的，这马上把那样可能个计划这个做的大不当过，等着连着啥的哇。这了的呢，这里龙波尼玛个听说门这不拿过拿，这里听破瓦个当把的，等你一把的哇。这大当个从破瓦个的举把拿的那有的，这东西大三节了说完的是进度啊，他的龙波尼玛个计划一下。
And then later, several hundred years later, but I don't have an exact date for you, but some hundreds of years later, several hundred, then the minister named Nima was reincarnated as the treasure revealing master, the Tertun named Nida Sangye. And because he had this very strong connection with the practice of the Poa, then as a future birth, he, of course, was close to the lake where the Poa had been hidden by his predecessor long ago. And he went to this lake, Mandal Nakpo, and there he discovered the Dharma that had been hidden in the past. And so that's why in our lineage prayer for the Poa, we always say, I pray to the treasure revealer, Nida Sangye. He's the actual reincarnation of that minister Nima during the time of Guru Rinpoche.
那在几百年之后，这个详细的年数我不记得了。这个大臣尼玛呢，就转世成一个非常有名的这个伏藏师，就是尼达桑给。然后因为他前世跟这个婆瓦法有这么深的因缘呢，在那一世他就把它取出这个伏藏出来。那就把它传承下出来。那这就是为什么这个原因，因为有这个历史的因缘跟典故呢，我们在修破瓦的时候，有个传承祖师的祈请文的时候，里面有提到那个 Denden Sangye， 就是这一位大臣尼玛的这个转世，这个伏藏师Nida Sangye。
这多年的三节你上的你讲个的国的兰坡这个国内的劳动要过，甚至忙不平头讲啥的，因那样大众没有开始了70个人做的那个农田有啥的哇，没有开始了70个人，这个呢，你别有嘛的爬下去，都这多年的三节，你。kan din puan yubana na yorego to din sangha bada in sayo de ti shodan tana to sumchu sobde na tana to on sumin nang ka jam se do te to ni da sanje ke jinin sumin nang ka jam se 당 도딘 상가바다 파체 니사 인사요 직주래 드니르 바이인데 다캡 송와래 동 가지고 주바나나티 쇼당 숨치 섭제 근거 드니다 송도가데 송 연진 분송 남자 드니 송된 동 가지고 주바나나 레베
Gong Nida Sanje Tang, Sumi Nanga Jamsin, Todin Sankabada, Pago Jamilodri, Chuji Sanje Jamsin, Sumi Martin Sinjin, Titi, Mixan Ronka Jamare. Tini Yonzin Punson Namjani, Zonten Ronka Laju Janjari. Tini Tate, but the Tarma is Maju de Patanjari.
Then the lineage was passed down from Terto Nida Sangye, and from that point on, there was tremendous benefit to the sentient beings. Like it was quite, powerful, beneficial practice, and really brought benefit to many, many beings. But it wasn't particularly Drikung Kagyu lineage until the later time, because in the beginning it was passed down from Terto Nida Sangye, and then it's actually on page 37 in your Poa text. There's a verse that goes through each of the lineage masters passing down. And so it starts with Terto Nida Sangye, and then Tsungme Namka Gensen, and then Tokden Samka Badra, and Paga Jime Lodru, and Chuje Sangye Gensen, and then Tsungme Mati Tsenjen. So all of these, they weren't specifically Jikun Kagyu. So at that point, it wouldn't have been called the Jikun Kagyu Poa. But page 38, when it is passed down after Tsungme Mati, actually Tsenjen just means name. It's not the name. It's actually just Tsungme Mati. So Tsungme Mati, after him is Yongzin Punsok Namgyel. And so Yongzin Punsok Namgyel is the beginning of the Jikun Kagyu lineage of Poa, because from him onward, everyone else, all the other lineage holding masters, are solely of the Jikun Kagyu tradition. And it is from that point onward that it was known as the Jikun Kagyu Poa. Of the Jikun Kagyu? It's Yongzin Punsok Namgyel. It's on page 38.
这个传承呢，当然是从尼达桑杰开始的传下来，广传出来，在之后有许许多多的修行人修这个法而成就。但是在一开始的时候，这并不是只供噶举特有的这个传承。中文的法本，你们看到第9页下半段那个四个 column， 那个一开始第一个就是祈请尼达桑杰福藏师，这个就是那边开始的，然后这样前面几个都不是只供噶举的，一直到永贞喷错才开始永贞奔错南家尊那边开始呢，1、2、3、4、5、6、7，第7位开始就开始传到这个只供噶举的传承了。
Teni zonde tata te pardon ron ka ju Japan te na te po anja choma te danga mixan ro ka chi shu ji cha de yo.
And therefore, up until now, then the inserting of the blade of grass, the Poa Jaksuma practice of the Jikun Kagyu, has become one of the most important practices of the Jikun tradition.
一直传到现在，这个婆瓦法呢，甚至有插草这个仪轨呢，这个甲处马的这个仪轨变成这个直供噶举特有的一个传承，非常有名的一个传承。
teni tin po ate ta ngarang ke jangwa si pe kap su yin andra teni mala che po jaya tende kang ke kap su yin na yang thoma de la khachan la ba na yin kunlong yang da ba che kunlong samba zambo sanchok sem ta sanchok sem so te pe ja chen bo re yin na yang chi samba zambo yin ping lo ju ma ma yin ba che tende che yong go ya de ka chen bo re sha.
And when you are practicing this poa, whether you are doing it for yourself and the inserting of the blade poa, or whether you are doing it on behalf of somebody else, in the beginning, at first, it's always crucial that you make sure you have the right motivation, that really you have the pure-hearted motivation to benefit. And talking about having bodhicitta, that's something so vast, but at least even if you just have a good-hearted basic goodness, a motivation of genuinely wanting to benefit others, that is something that is also the motivation to benefit others, that is like not faking it, not feigned or fabricated, but just genuine. That's something very important to make sure you have.
那么当修这个破瓦法的时候，在插草这个法门的时候，不管是我们自己自修，或者是为别人修，我们应该要有纯正的这个发心，我们要发广大的菩提心，这样子是最好的。如果没有办法的话，你也要有一个好心肠，想要利益众生，而不是说这种假情虚情假意的这样子来做，这一点是非常重要的。
다 효당 순박 말고 니박 나한테는 이 경도와 마곰 버득보지 안상자와르시면 보담바 사몬데 냥술랑와 탑라 니요레스 장탑단레라 자와스 당보 장와단 테니 우스제 레라 자와 그런바 니용고요레스 간단하양 대값수 토마토라 잠로선지 혼든로 보레 제다라 테니 대장원 값이나양 남남 주둔단 딘바 제요레든 간단하양 제 rupo trampo gatsek de trampo sene de go tenenga je chakedo kashi yang jidum jan de motoba yoro de hirake je mare.
So on page 2 of your Poa practice text, reading from the small italicized words above about the text, it says there are two ways to practice, or two stages to practice these profound instructions of transference of consciousness, through which even one with great negative karma, even great sinners, can attain enlightenment without meditating. The two stages are training and practicing the Poa, and then actually applying it in action.
中文本在第一页最上面2行。
And so here, what is the point being made is that in either of the stages you are at, whether you are just practicing and training or you're actually ready to apply it, both times you begin with refuge and bodhicitta. And then also in both times, make sure you have the right body posture. Here it says, while sitting in the 7-point posture of Vairochana. But keep in mind, there are some people who cannot sit in cross-legged or full lotus crossed vajra posture. That's not what's most important here. What this really points to is the importance of keeping your posture straight. Your spine should be straight. Everything else isn't as important as that, but having a straight spine.
请中文看这个法本的第1页最上面那2行。经由修持2种牵示法，即使有极大恶者，亦可能不经由禅修而得证悟。修持法有2种，可以在平日修持，就是平常我们在练习的时候，或者是业报成熟，自己或别人将往生的时候来修。我们在修这个破瓦法的时候，应该要先持皈依发心，有一个纯正的发心。那身体的姿势呢，应该以比如遮那的7支坐法为基础来在观修。那至于有些人他没有办法双盘，甚至没有办法盘腿的人，他要怎么办呢？其实腿的姿势不是那么重要的，最重要的是在修这个法的时候，背脊要直。
다든지 대차가 값수 아랑초 소수그 주포테 도지 남조 말 공고요래 도지 남조 말 마공봉훈도 엄소바와 제도와 라강고나양 담보지 파 동발의 장고래 동발의 장단들 따따다 가소지 담말그 나완 근데 담지 파 참아 매매병알아 즉 도와 나온깔 상완하지 파 동발의 로장 근데 제가 도와 남걸 템바나지 다당가서 나무 춘데다 탐지 좋아 돈 동문에서나 나무 춘데다 탐지 그 라인 동반이 바시 근데 제 고요 mena yang ta ta chi nang chun de tham che ma mek pa pa to wa nang kha la tham ba na jing tong ba re jang tha to ma de la.
So once we have already gotten ourselves seated and ready for the practice, then we have to arise in the form of Dorje Nanjoma, that is Vajrayogini. But first we start with the Om So Baba mantra to dissolve into emptiness. Whatever deity that we are meditating on or visualizing, we always have to begin by, as it says, dissolving or purifying all into emptiness, and from out of that state of emptiness we arise as the deity. So how do we refine or dissolve into emptiness? What is the method for this? Well, here what we do is basically all of the perceptions, all the appearances that are arising to our ordinary perception, we simply let these all dissolve into a non-referential state of emptiness, like smoke dissolving into space. All of the appearance phenomena just simply fades into the emptiness expanse beyond any point of reference. And so actually, if possible, we can simply recognize that the very nature of all phenomenal appearances, all appearances that appear, the very nature is emptiness. But at least what we do is we can feel that all that appears, like all the appearances in our perceptions, simply fade like smoke into space, simply fade into the non-referential state of emptiness. That's how we refine or dissolve into emptiness. You can say either one, it's the same meaning, but here it says Vajrayogini.
当我们这个姿势正确之后，接下来我们这个法本里面有讲说，自观本身成为金刚瑜伽女或金刚瑜伽母，然后要从观空咒开始，再来修法。Om Soba Shoda Soda Dhamma Soba Shoda Hong。这个观空咒呢，在很多的修法呢，我们一开始都要把一切外面的这个事项呢，都融于虚空，融于空性之中，然后再从空性中显现出一切。那么因为我们一般的这个凡夫对一般世俗上的一些外在的一些现象呢，都是一种平常的这种见解。那当我们做消融的时候，在本性当中空消融于空性的时候，这种观修呢，事实上它是没有对应对照点的，就好像把烟，就好像那个烟融入虚空一样，你去哪里去找这个对应点呢 ？reference point 呢？所有那在推广来讲呢，所有一切的现象都是从空性中来的。那这个所有我们的观点应该有这样子这个了解，消融于虚空性中，就好像烟融入虚空一样，没有对应的对照点。
tani teji ne tongbu ngangle ngarang ke zukbo ngarang ke sem de doje pamo ke namba ta te ta jik sargo yo re ten du ta ti pechana na ha jang sarbo trindo je ni ni par yorwa tela ta te ni tundru se ne thu tuk ji na tani tela muksa yang ja la ya ja yo mare nge ma lo ndo yi tongbu ngangle rāñi ke chaka dorje namjo ma kumdo pema rāgando jin xiā nima zā yā chakpa nyam jin jin so ngā wān chiwa chung zi zikwa wata si jin jin sirwa jab tu chorwa to kāng wā jin pa nāda ye su pā yāna pa ngā dāng jin pa sā ye sāng chi chō nāng kwa la sā wā yuñ tu chā to kā nāng pa chumā kā dāng kwa dāng din pa xiāb yuñ kum pa ye ji lā la jar wā ye jang tab ju solme panro se po ken jan de je wen kan nem pa tulung ab ju do khan chang wa dar ma bo dang ru be jin je jin ba ko la ra yin me ba de ko bu so o ko na la ra yin me ba ten te pa do lo
And then from this, out of this space of emptiness, you arise in the form, your mind arises in the form of Doje Pangmo or Doje Vajra, Doje Pangmo. Or Vajra Varahi or Vajra Yogini. Either way, it's basically the same anyway, whatever name you give. So here the visualization, I don't need to reiterate because it's very clearly expressed here in your text, number one. And number two, you also have a picture to look at. So I don't need to go anything beyond that. So I'll simply read from the text here. From within the state of emptiness, I arise instantly as Vajrayogini with two faces. What?
Take the pal over your fire. Two faces.
With because one of the faces is the grunting pig's head.
Yeah.
And a body the color of ruby. My main face has a passionate expression with 3 eyes and slightly bared fangs. Half of my hair is bound in a top knot and the rest hangs freely down my back. I wear a diadem of 5 dried skulls, and above my right ear is the black face of a grunting sow. In my right hand I hold aloft towards the sky a hooked knife made of copper. With my left I hold at my heart level a skull cup filled with blood and a kadvanga, a trident, resting against the crook of my arm. My left leg is bent in with the foot resting against my right thigh. And my right leg is straight as I press down with my toes on the heart of a yellow corpse lying on its back. A necklace of 50 freshly severed heads is draped around my neck. I am adorned with red skulls and bone ornaments. My body appears yet without substantial nature.
接下来这个观想的部分在法本里面写得很清楚，而且各位的这个法照这边也很清楚，所以我就不会细讲，我们就照着法本这样子走一次就可以了。那从空性中自己自身生成金刚瑜伽女、瑜伽母，或者是金刚亥母，这两者根本上是一样的。那大家这个在看这个法本的时候，观想的描述很清楚，就不再详细的解释。基本上这是讲说，从空性中所化现，汝众自身刹那间转变成金刚瑜伽女、金刚瑜伽母，生红宝石颜色之两面，根本脸就是主要的脸，具有贪欲之神韵，有3目3个眼睛，獠牙为肉。头发半束，一半挽束起来，一半垂散于后面。头上也有5个甘炉来当做头饰。在右耳的后面呢，有一个另外第2个脸，就是黑色的猪脸，它的状相就是好像发出嚎叫声的那个嘴型。金刚瑜伽母的右手臂呢，是握着一个红色的弯刀，高举于空中。那左手是持圣血的这个炉器嘎巴拉，那放在心脏间的位置。那右手的手肘弯曲的地方有一个3叉戟，就是嘎张卡。那么左足它是弯曲的，并且碰触右胯连接的地方。那么以他的这个右脚拇指是压制一个黄色仰躺的这个黄色石狮的心间，他的右脚拇指就压在他的那边。那么他身上是垂挂着50个狮炉的环链，就是刚刚砍下来的这个新鲜的这个狮炉。那么身上有红色的绢帛跟骨饰来做庄严，这样子是做这样子的观想。
他这里说起是谁个这个，把当别家这是条蛮从我个人都是呢，别家那我这时间就那么师傅做啊这有的，这草嘛要生的完着我记得哇，这别家来也压过来。 Teni nipa tela nata yeso phaya na pongoda do ba je yorwa. Di phaya te na ba jablo likhi so to. Te ya na ba ta ta go re. Te ni te so sashye se ko sare.
One thing I want to clarify is there are two discrepancies between the picture of the Vajravarahi that you have and then the description here in the text. And the description in the text is the correct version that you want to follow in your visualization. So one discrepancy is that in the text, it actually says that half of her hair is bound in a top knot and the rest hangs freely down her back. But in the picture, it shows all of her hair like sticking upward. And so you use the text as your reference for the visualization. And so, or standing upright would be the more correct way of saying it. But you don't want it all standing upright in your visualization. You still want half freely down the back, just like in the text. The second discrepancy is that in the text here, it says that and the text here, it says above my right ear is a grunting sow, the black face of a grunting sow jutting out from above my right ear. But if you notice the picture, it makes it look like the sow's face is behind her right ear. So that's not actually correct. You should follow the text in this case.
这个法照跟我们这个法本的内容也稍微有点出入，在这边做解释。那第一个出入就是在这个法本上面有讲到头发半束而垂散于后，它事实上它这个发髻是挽了一半，前半是挽起来的，后半段是垂散于后的。那这个跟这个照片上的这个金刚一拳母的这个头发都是竖起来往上的，是不太一样的。所以你们观想的时候可以按照法本的这个来做观想。那另外一个呢，这个中文跟英文法本的翻译稍微有点出入。那个英文的法本是说在右耳之上有一个黑色的猪脸，然后这个嘴型好像发出嚎叫声那样子的嘴型，它是在右耳之上。那但是这个如果我们看照片的话，看起来好像是在右耳的后面。那但中文的这个翻译它也是讲右耳脑后。那我们观想的时候，应该这个猪头是在右耳的上方的，而不是在后面的。所以这个是稍微就是看中文法本的人要注意一下，是在右耳的上方。
这到个多的nam就嘛个国际萨达呢，他的恐怖无所是，等等的话，的恐怖无所，在我们生活了那么完全一样的吧，咱们用中国咱这样啥不有的人呢，参悟他们呢。Sane susu ku nyankar tsegi jepa tawi tento pe mama pondama yepe simdru tento rang nambar hi pango tekle marpo semdo wozaram yang hin yo wan phala kepa jezo to wama yan ne chang jam thong khase wa taw yo pe tento mo wo zabla ma yimba la Namba sanje opa me komdo mapo tuku chabze jin chu sum tang ting bang chin tang pepsi ji jimba rinpo chi chala sam yok tsudu yopa tewong ki rang changwo kakwa la jupa lama nam ji kowa sam si parto lo tati opa me tang za wama nika pari yorwa ngone sina ti za wama te pendap di yang thosa go sari nika la yorwa
So we left off reading through in the English page 4 almost to the last line. So we're in the form of Vajrayogini, then appearing vividly, and then along the central meridian of the central meridian of my body, as Vajrayogini, is the central channel, which is blue on the outside, red on the inside, and imbued with the 4 qualities. And it is about the diameter of a medium-sized bamboo arrow. And the upper part, and so this is pretty clear, the upper part extends to the aperture of Brahma, namely the crown chakra. The lower end of this central channel extends down to the secret place. At the heart level, on a ledge similar to the diaphragm found in bamboo, is a 4-petaled red lotus. On its bed is the essence of my own awareness as a red sphere about the size of a single pea or lentil. It is light and vibrating and on the verge of flying up. It's like just like kind of pulsating, ready to eject itself. At the at the crown, the upper part of the central channel opens up to the crown chakra, like a dome of light, like a skylight, a domed skylight. Above that is the essence, is my own root lama in essence, appearing in the form of Buddha Amitabha. He is red in color, appearing in the Nirmanakaya aspect, with the 3 Dharma robes ornamented by the major and minor marks. He sits on a jeweled throne in the posture of Buddha Maitreya, and his big toe blocking the opening of the crown chakra. He is surrounded by all the lineaged lamas. So you have in your 3 pictures of the Poa visualization, on the right is an image of the central channel. Only thing is that the lotus petals upon which the sphere of your consciousness resides are depicted here a little too low, because it should be a little higher because it sits at the area of your heart.
那我们现在来讲中文的这个观想，继续来讲。刚刚是讲到，就是说红色棉绢绵薄与古世庄严，观身现无自性而明亮。第2页，如是明现内部之中央有中脉，中间有一个中脉。是外面是蓝色，里面是红色的，它是中空的，而且它是很薄的，好像这个纸一样的薄。那它确实的颜色是有点粉红色，好像是紫荆花的颜色，而且它是有明亮的特性，是内外明现，好像点芝麻的这种油灯。那它是很直的，又有点软，有点像芭蕉精，具足视性相。它的粗细好像是中等的这个竹剑那样子的粗细。它的上端呢是打开的，是在梵穴下端。上端是在从我们梵穴这边开始，下端是在我们的密穴那边。那中间在我们的心间差不多横膈膜的这个地方有一个像竹节的这个地方。那在这个竹节有这个莲花，红色4瓣莲花，在花蕊上有自己的自身意识的自性，就是一个红色的明点，它的大小像豌豆一样的，在这边跳动不定，非常的明亮，好像随时要跳上去跳出来的那样子。这个豌豆大小很明亮的红色明点，要这样子的来观想。那中脉刚刚讲到中脉的上端是我们的梵穴，它是在开口处的上面。开口处的，这上面就是中脉的顶端，就是我们的梵穴开口处。那么上面是有坐着我们本性的这个根本上师呢，他的形象是阿弥陀佛。那么阿弥陀佛的颜色是红色它是具化身的办事， 着三法衣，向好庄园，于珍宝宝座之上。那他这边比较特别的是以弥勒坐之，也就是他是安坐在那里，不是盘腿的。他的大拇指是压制在我们的头顶的饭穴上面，然后周围有围绕传承上师等等这样子。那至于观想的细部，大家可以用这3张照片来做参考。那在这边要解释的，在这个右边这个中脉图这里呢，这个莲花画的有一点过低，因为我们的心间横膈膜应该是比较高的地方，你们自己在做观想的时候再做调整就可以了。
Yeah, it faces to the right, but up to the sky. But it's facing to the right, not to the front, and it's facing to the sky. Also, in Tibet, they don't have like a lot of variation of the lentil type. So it's always just like a pea, which is larger than like dal. It's like the size of a pea, and it's round. That's the accurate.
OK， 喇嘛有做2个解释。刚刚讲的那个黑色的猪头是在我们右耳上面，它是朝侧边的，不是朝前的，然后是有点朝上的，发出这个嚎叫声的这个嘴型的，就有一点像这个。这个图片画的是朝上的。那个再来呢，在他解释的另外一点就是说，在藏区呢没有这么多的不同的豆类，那么所以来用不同的豆子来做描写，所以它的明点的大小是差不多豌豆大小这样子。他加的这2点解释。I think do you want to say? I think that you may not hear the English part. Is that I asked about the saw head. Where is it heading? Is it heading front or heading side? It's actually heading side and then up a little bit. So it's like that. Above the ear.
Today we don't have a lot of time to go through the whole teaching and finish still on time. So please bear with me and be patient. We will have to skip our normal 20-minute break today.
今天因为时间的关系，所以没有办法在教授的过程没有办法很仔细的这个讲，深入的来讲，所以请大家有耐心。那我们今天早上本来有的这个休息时间，我们也取消。
我早了嘛，因把这有了吧？等你经常做没啥个就早了嘛，着我当我呢，代把全部有啥等着见面呢？人家面就那么就等那我在人上过没有嘛嘞？开始我把没被代把全部有了，这样就这个人工作呢就有了。
So in the visualization, it says that above like your crown is your own root lama in essence, appearing in the form of Buddha Amitabha. So if you have a root guru, a special lama that you have tremendous faith and devotion for, then of course you would visualize Amitabha, but recognize the essence is your own root lama. But if you don't have a lama like that, so then you can simply just have the feeling that this is Amitabha, and you don't have to, conceptually feel like, oh, this is in essence is this lama or that lama. If you don't have a particular lama that you have that kind of strong faith in, then it's okay simply to just have that sense that this is Amitabha if you have faith in Amitabha Buddha.
在这个观想的这个法本里面，这个观想提到，就是在我们顶穴这个顶冠这边上面有我们的根本上师阿弥陀佛。那么这当然是一个表象。如果说你各位在有自己非根本的上师，而且你对于这个根本的上师有大恭敬心、大虔诚心的话，你要怎么做观想呢？外相还是阿弥陀佛，但是你知道你本质就是你的上师。那如果说你没有这样子的根本上师，但是你对阿弥陀佛有信心的话，你就可以单纯的观想阿弥陀佛，这样就可以了。
就当大家我个路那一旦讲我们那样的告诉那么的也没把谁这个有的吧？但我呢真的在各种等啥不就有的。上海的娘说的那个干啥的 그 상하 돈이 그 도르디로 본다 짜월라마데 오늘 즉 상제다 예매 봐진 통토고요래 대인 통토발라테네니 상하래 줄을 송와 그 네바데 자창데 소수줄을 랩토고요래 대인도 디스나 가도에나 데이터지 접탐나는 송데고요래.
Generally speaking, when we're talking within the tradition of Mantrayana, whatever Yidam deity we are meditating on, we always have to do so with the understanding that that deity is inseparable with our own Lama. And this has a very profound meaning and a very profound purpose. And that is because those people who are practitioners of secret Mantrayana should be able to see their Vajra master, their Lama who shows them and teaches them the secret Mantrayana path, as actually being no different and no separate from Buddha. And so if one is able to see one's Lama in this way, then all of the power and potency of the secret Mantrayana path that is described in the Tantras can really be available and really bring itself forth in your mind stream, just as it is explained in the Tantras. And this is what is said in the sadhanas.
一般而言，我们的在修行密咒序的这个行者呢，我们通常会提到，就说这本尊跟我们上师是无二无别的。那这个的讲法是甚深的，有甚深的含义跟它的目的的。一个修行的人如果应该要视自己的具德上师与佛是等同的，当一个修行人可以这样子来看待自己的上师的话，那么自然在自己的心绪中能够升起这些种种的这个法，所以这个是非常重要的一个要点。
等大众因把这了，感觉是过灵过有的是呢，那么是话的샘들 문제인 거예요. 라면 샘들. 네. 샘들 라면 샘스와 그 샘그란히 예 가르쳐 그러지. 사동 송족가 샘그란히 되는 문제인데 대상제 단지바리. 디바지 장차고요.
Another understanding that you can glean from this is that when we say Lama, when we talk about the Lama, we're really talking about the mind. In fact, the Lama's mind nature is none other than luminosity and emptiness, indivisible. And that's the very nature of the mind. And so this is also the same as Buddha. And so recognizing this then is even a deeper way to draw understanding from this idea of the Lama.
我们对上师跟佛之间的关系的另外一个理解是，当我们讲到上师的时候，事实上我们讲的是他上师的心。那上师心的这个本质是明空不二的这种特性。那这个也就是我们一般讲心的这个本质了。那这个是与佛等同的，所以在这一个层面上来讲，它也有很深的这个含义。大家应可以这样做的理解。
di mikpa gomrang ko na tani ta tani pala ta tani se ngarang doje pamoti na yi sei zobo ti na yin che sa hyata dukje lo topa chungze jame pa tongbak o je zobo che sa tani tangbu kapsu ni tende pesa o je timbo je yong ko mare ba tele semda go mare 做起啊的搞的过日子呢，对哪个早我们的是那个啥子，用头不谈着是，对啦的是个没办讲，真的是一个人谈不。
And so then you would be practicing the visualization and the meditation just as it is described here in your text. So you visualize yourself as Vajravarahi, and you don't have any slight sense of yourself in your ordinary corporeal form of flesh and blood at all, but that you are the nature of emptiness, the nature of light, and in the center of your body is the central channel. Now, in the beginning, when you first start, of course, your visualization isn't going to be clear or stable right away. You don't have to worry about that. Almost more important than the visualization of yourself as the deity's form is that you have some visual presence, some visual picture of your central channel. And so you just work with that and practice visualizing that. And so then you're training in your visualization.
当我们观修或者是在禅修的时候，观自身为金刚瑜伽母，那么这个也就是我们这个身体已经不是凡夫的肉身，但是具有空性，它是明亮光亮的，而且有中脉的。那可能这些观想一开始没有办法很清楚，这是没有太大问题的。你要了解到自身就是本尊，然后从清楚的观想中脉开始来做训练。
等你打龙卡继续接的，산조어바메라 대바 효자보 제요나 드네 레라원다고 연구해서래 인지미지 대바데 개버탑고도 드네 산조어바메 담포와 그 주버 라마도 솔라데 동효자보 거니 소안데네 드네 디 대버 돕데가 조천보지 연구해서래 드네 맥바당 드네 제그 거니야 남시대 보요르바
The most important thing is to have an overwhelming and powerful faith and devotion to Buddha Amitabha. And if you have this really strong faith, this really powerful, intense faith, then everything will become quite easy. And so what is really crucial here is to do whatever you can to cultivate that feeling of faith, strong faith and devotion in Buddha Amitabha and in the lamas teaching the Poa, the lineage holders and the lamas, your lamas teaching you the Poa, and just give rise to pray to them with intense and fervent devotion and faith, because this will be a great help to you. And then you just practice with the visualization and work with kind of projecting out your consciousness or ejecting your consciousness.
那最重要的就是我们要发起无比的这种信心，对于阿弥陀佛、对上师，这个有发起非常强烈、非常强大的这种信心。你如果说对阿弥陀佛有这种信心的话，那你要修这个法就比较容易了。我们在这边要注意的是，要我们长养我们自己的信心跟虔诚心，对于传法的上师，对于传承的祖师，自心的祈请，这一点是非常重要的。那么接下来就是说观想，说你自己在做其他的观想啊，包含这个心意识的这个明点，怎么样摄出牵示等等的这些步骤。
他当波把米当波拉住了说完的，te pa hiu trapo ko goni sawande ti sowa ta chabagal mekpa ti yang jar gom tini nyang ka the ka pe man da ye ka gang ka ti nam ye ka ngo thile de tini hek deng ya ramba yin de chen to ta ne tini ji ma te ka ya san je oba me ka sha gun the on de la thuk tin de se go yo re tini ti ji ni ka ju ne te ka ya ma te nga ti Dempe manda yuga dentana ma pap mekwa tendresi ta tela yang to jango go yore teni tela jango kapso yang zo de dambo long de wo la zongo yore long wo long yang ting ting long jung ze ma ni po wa ga damba te song yorwa long ge yo la hekin da sa long de yo na yin long ge hyo le den yang ro go re long yo na ye na ti tikle te ta da na ye sene yang pa na ye sene long sho la te ne ten sene ya ro yo re long ta ma pa sem sem te sa te la te den re ya ro yo re ba.
So first you pray and supplicate Buddha Amitabha and all of the lineage lamas of the Poa lineage, and you pray with intense faith. And then after you do the lineage prayer supplication with faith, then again you go through the visualization. And so then at the area of your heart in the central channel, atop that 4-petaled lotus flower, the essence of your consciousness appearing as this red sphere, this red bindu. And then you recite Pet Lindun Jene di Jeto Jetolaya Parne Teni di Opa Megi Tebong Bardotuk Teni Yanka di Ma Papkoris. And then you say Pet 7 times, and with each recitation of Pet, you're bringing this consciousness up higher and higher along through the central channel, and then you feel that it comes out through the crown chakra and just touches the big toe of Buddha Amitabha, just touches it. And then you bring it back down with Ka, bring it back down through your central channel, back to your heart. And so you just practice in this way again and again. And what is really principal importance here is to work with the breath, the prana, because actually like what you want to do is be kind of closing off the releasing of the lower winds or lower pranas, kind of like pulling it up, and then with your upper prana you want to kind of gently be pushing down so that you're kind of like cupping. And then what we say in the Poa teachings is that the breath, or rather the prana, is kind of like the bow, and like the bowstring, and then the dadi hikdigi. Di lung di shu na jinche hikdi da na je resangve.
Da ngune sene da na yinde ti thile te chawe yore.
Hikdigi kenche. And so the breath or the prana is like the bow, the bowstring. And then actually the arrow, the real arrow, is actually the sphere of your consciousness. And with the sound of hik recitation, it's like the condition of like releasing the bow with the arrow to shoot the arrow upward. And so that's why you need these 3 elements coming together: the breath or the prana, and then the visualization and mind, these 3. Well, he said, first he said pit 7 times, but now he says hik is like the condition that shoots the arrow. So.
所以我们在这边要祈请阿弥陀佛以及诸传承的上师，要升起无比强烈、坚强的这种信心，然后再来做观想。在我们中脉的心间呢，有莲花，莲花的花瓣之上有一个红色的明亮的这个明点。那
Sorry, it was hik 7 times. Just temporarily forget the pit for the moment.
所以我们要做练习的时候，就是让这个红色好像豌豆大的这明亮的这个红色的明点呢，我们每次配合呼吸，然后发出这个 hik 的这个声音7次，每一次你都把这个明点往上提，一直到它冲出这个顶穴，碰到我们顶穴上面这个阿弥陀佛的大脚拇指为止。然后我们再念嘎，然后再把这个意识让它慢慢的下降，降到我们的这个心间这个地方，一次一次这样子的反复的练习，配合我们的呼吸。那我们中脉的下部是在密处那里，它是封闭起来的。那么在这个时候为什么要配合呼吸呢？这因为我们的气息就好像弓的这个弓弦一样，要把它绷紧。 那么这个见是什么呢？就见是我们的心意识，就是心识。然后这个 hik 这个字，然后配合的呼吸，配合的观想，配合的这个心识，三者配合起来，这样可以比较成功的来修习这个破瓦法。
这里的啦，mix个达嘛，这啦，的 hik 的做，long 这个，那你呀。Rogoris, tene songdwa longjik hek longjik nani ando tene ka se de long nang ngo bu ka se ti ka se da de na na thi tene se goris ne ke mexa ka da ma tene songdo tene se bu ka su thoma te la de hek mang ta na de sa yang ka le yo re longjik ma da wan do Hiksum sen, long jek hiksum sen yang po, ye ka jek ma pap, long dang ni de ma na na pap, tentu sen, long le ting ko jute ka chen bon deng sare.
In the special instructions, it says that you should, in the recitations of hik, you should have that all be encompassed in one single out breath, so you're not inhaling in the middle of it. So it's all in one exhalation. You're saying however many hik you can in one breath. And then when you draw the consciousness back down through your central channel with Ga, that's supposed to correlate with the intake of the breath. So with an inhalation of breath, you're saying Ga and inhaling. And but in the beginning, it's hard to have enough breath to last the number of hik recitations that you want. So you can do 3 hiks per breath, per out breath. So that's something kind of important because it's in the oral instructions. So and then with Ga, when you say Ga, you're doing it with 1 in breath.
在这边有一个特别要提醒大家的地方，就是在我们的发出这个字 hik 的时候，我们是在配合呼吸的。那是在这个呼气的时候，一次呼吸之内完成的。也就是说，你在呼出气息的时候，你看你可以做几次。那对于初学者，你吐一次气，你要 hik 7次的话，可能太多了。那如果说没有办法一下子在吐一口气的时候做7次的这个 hik 的这个提升明点的这个动作的话，3次也是可以的。然后在我们念 ga 的时候，把这个明点让它下降回到这个心间这个时候配合的吸气。所以一开始是呼气的时候是 hik。那你如果一开始7次没有办法，可以3次，然后慢慢加多。
这破讲是呢，他第没把的，第讲话的他长忙不着过有了吧？这里讲话的听嘛什么哑巴，这里样的说的的零热络，样讲话把球是个有的，哑巴呀的听嘛什么是。yang ti jini sondab de chare lo ta tende se ne ta ma thong ko de tende se jang go yore.
So now we're talking about the stage of just practicing and training ourselves in the Poa practice. And so this, we will have to do this many times, of course. And so the way to do this would be like you'll do the practice and the ejecting of consciousness 3 times, and then you'll go back to recite the lineage prayer again 1 time, and then you go back to do 3 times of what is called parchok. It means the actual practice of ejecting the consciousness visualization. Then you do that practice, you do that 3 times again, then go back to 1 time recitation like that. Recitation of the lineage prayer 1 time, then 3 times going through the training of ejecting the consciousness, then again 1 time lineage prayer. And you keep going through this until you have signs.
那么我们就可以这样反复的来做练习的。这个训练，这个练习是很重要的。 要多次反复的在练习，可以这样子，这个 hit 往上，把这个明点这个或者是意识往上投射出去，这样子，这样上下这样子，总共3次，然后呢，这个再念这个传承上师的祈请文，然后再来 Bhakti-yogic， 就是把这个意识往上提，要投射出去，这样子反复3次之后，再念传承上师祈请文，然后再这样做这个练习3次，再念传承上师祈请文，这样重复的练习，一直到你这个波瓦的成就的这个征兆出现为止。
问题呢？听当波的啦，但那拉就说的人啊就有了吧，一般人就有了。 tema tenji lodra pacho tema somse teni ti jine teni la ju son de dua thonga jing do jang ka su terang teni yang ni yang lo ya la te se de ma to rengan de chare lo ko ne de tu chu lo do de ba.
So the first time when you first start with the first recitation of the lineage prayer, you do the longer one. There's an extensive, longer lineage prayer. And then you do the going 3 times through the ejecting of consciousness, practice visualization. But then when you're ready to go back to doing one recitation of the lineage prayer, you don't have to do the long one each time. Just do the short. There's a shorter lineage prayer. So only the first time when you're just starting for that session, then you do the longer one at the beginning. And then each time you've completed 3 rounds of your practice of ejecting consciousness and you're ready to do the lineage prayer, you can do the shorter one. Otherwise, the long lineage prayer is really long. That would take a lot of your time just reciting that 1 time per every 3 rounds. So you can do the concise lineage prayer afterwards.
那么我们在第一次在做这样练习的时候，我们要念的这个上师的传承祈请文是长的那一个，也就是从第3页开始一直到第9页的上半段为止。然后这样子念完之后，来这个做3次的 Bhakti-yogic， 把我们的这个意识明点往上提，投射出去。之后呢，第一次念完长寿这个长的这个传承上师祈请文之后，以后呢，第2次开始，你就可以从第9页的中间一直到第10页的中间这样子念就可以了，不必再重复那个很长的那个传承上师祈请文，因为你如果这样子的话，你的时间可能会花得很多。甚至可能会不够，你可以反复的在练习这个意识的把它往上提，然后念短的这个上师祈请文，传承上师祈请文。
The longer lineage prayer starts on page 7 right after the practice and goes up to 35, and the short lineage prayer is on page 36 in English.
Teni te tau ko gone ta jangwa ka che ten ka hit ka che si ten ngarang so ka tu chula ta he si choro wa teni sam yarin ba kap su jangwa thama de ka ji ni teni tana te sar ka tu lo lo se ne jo pa me o de shone ran la tem zon sam ba si gure o pa me ran la tem rang do je 남교 마데 제바 메르고른 조송상 드니 디지니 체가 님바카시 다고레
So you train and practice like this as many rounds as you can, depending on how long you've allotted your session of practice and how much time you have for that practice session. And then when you are ready to conclude that session of practice and you've finished your final round for that session, then after you complete the whole run through again, then you finally feel that Buddha Amitabha above your crown dissolves into you, and then you, who is Vajra yogini, now at the moment that Amitabha dissolves into you, you transform into Amitayus, the Buddha of immeasurable longevity. And there you recite several times the long life mantra, the Amitayus mantra. No definitive number.
所以大家可以依照自己的时间的长短多少来做这个训练跟练习来决定你这样要这个练习的次数，一直到你清楚的观到这个阿弥陀佛融入你自己自身，然后你自身转成为金刚瑜伽母之后呢，你再把自己化成这个长寿佛。那么长寿在念这个最后一页下半段的这个长寿佛的这个仪轨，这样子。
这里大我做呢，但普隆囊是吧的，普安囊是吧的，但罗本这个马没把当接把过呢，马差的落的吧？这里有了八条是真的是用过有的。티 값소 로마 쪽에 맥바랑존 로고 말에 대교르바 대다지 랑 소소도지 남jo 말사야다 자와마도솔 사르담네 대교는 드니 로pon게 다 빠초 핵 세네 핵 잡 값소 소소양 대당 자네 소소 맥바드 양 대당 자네 야 테마스는 반 맥바드 저 제ek 거래 तेलम फोलोंग नांग से न तंदे चिगले तनी ते ताता ने लोग हैं जो
So now to begin the teacher has to give what is called the polung, or the oral transmission for the poa, in which the teacher who is bestowing the poa reads through the full text, but you as the students you have to pay attention and read along, but not out loud. So you're not actually saying it with me, you're listening, but you're keeping up with the visualization, and as if you are already practicing. So as I read through and we get to the stage where you're going to be with the hik recitation, projecting your consciousness upward, you visualize yourself just as it says in the text. As you're listening, you're visualizing yourself as Vajrayogini, and then when I say hik, then you start to visualize your consciousness rising up and all of that. But you're at the same time you're listening, you're not reciting, but you keep your visualization happening.
接下来就是要破弄，就是要给过弄这个开始的时候给你大家这个口传。那么各位要注意的一点是，当我在念的时候，你们可以跟着念，但是不是你事实上不是在念，你是主要的要做的事是仔细的听我在这边念，你可以跟着一起这样子下去。一直到这个我们要开始来练习那个 hik， 就是把这个意识牵出去的时候，在这个过程你都可以听我念，然后来自己也在练习，也就是随文入观，然后再等到 hik 的时候再来练习把我们的意识往上提。那再提醒一次，就是你们在这个阶段要注意的是注意听，而不是跟着我大声的念出来。
Pardon lama ko yuwa so da bo ga jo yong je zo jin ro we de bon dam ba lam do tu jing na da ja we ja za ka den da da tuen ba da me do jin jang wang gong bon zhong ba jen bon jin no so wan do so tu ji ze ke sin ji lo jing go do na ni da da zo ji do ni lan ren de zo je pardon lama ko yuwa so da bo ga jo yong je zo jin ro we de bon da ba lam do tu jing na da ja we ja za ka den da da tuen ba da me do jin jang wang gong bon zhong ba jen bon jin no so wan do so tu ji ze ke sin ji lo jing go do na ni da da zo ji Tuni London Zorje Umso Bava Shuda Sarva Dhamma So Bava Shudo Hang 东本安来其他那个这个多见那就嘛工作被马了很多钱下你嘛在亚儿桥本娘见见送啊去话中这个我这时间就是个接的着吧托把托干哎我今本那大也是发现那本个张今把所以上节这个能快了是吧有托着托干那不怎么可长个当天吧下边跟别业界拉也话也将我搭接帮助说明帮助是不跟家等结婚你看那把屠龙啊就到现将我打嘛不到日本经济个那了让因为把的恐怖不是这我们生活了那么往今年阶段的办咱用政府咱们也来政府的么的上来是说不人家这个节把单位等的被妈妈帮大妈也被心着等的既然咱们不基本我突然嘛不什么都不涨阳性有往跑了去吧就走的我们也呢从交通考试吧单位有不等的我找了嘛人把了那把3节我把没工作嘛不这个假设进去个什当天帮cent堂被直接进保证不接车了上有就车的有个台湾个让个政府搞把了就不拉嘛那么的国外上说话大的还给这个完了提来的你就我马东咱们的上节下天了都送我上些没把啥问啊呢没动我样就说完的吧呢我今被满就来了，说完的沙朗破完就完生交了，牛郎破完，他就这把生交了，打算的呢，准备就毛的，对我今天就完生交了，上节我把没了生交了，得多年了生交了，说完的沙朗破完就完生交了，牛郎破完，他就这把生交了，打算的呢，准备就毛的，对我今天就完生交了。上节我把没了抢长了，从闽南快讲真了，说完的沙朗破完就完生交了，牛郎破完，他就这把生交了，打算的呢，准备就毛的，对我今天就完生交了，上节我把没了生交了。这种多定3个巴掌了，说完的沙朗破完就我生交了，牛郎破完他就这把生交了，打算的呢准备就嘛到对我今天就完生交了。上节我把没了抢砸了，把个证明落住了，说完的沙朗破完就我生交了，牛郎破完他就这把生交了，打算的呢准备就嘛到对我今天就完生交了。上节我把没了3查了。去年3节讲真了，说完的沙朗破完就完生交了，牛郎破完他就这把生交了，打算的呢准备就嘛到对我今天就完生交了。3节我把没了抢砸了，从没马登成经了，说完的沙朗破完就完生交了，牛郎破完他就这把生交了，打算的呢准备就嘛到对我今天就完生交了。3节我把没了抢砸了，杨金铺装弄掉了，说完的沙朗破完就完生交了。牛郎破完他就这把生交了，打算的呢准备就嘛到对我今天就完生交了。3节我把没了抢砸了，看见他们就碰着了，说完的沙朗破完就完生交了，牛郎破完他就这把生交了，打算的呢准备就嘛到对我今天就完生交了。3节我把没了抢砸了，就总共就让那了，说完的沙朗破完就完生交了，牛郎破完他就这把生交了，打算的呢准备就嘛到对我今天就完生交了。3节我把没了抢砸了，人正确就找把了，说完的沙朗破完就完生交了，牛郎破完他就这把生交了，打算的呢准备就嘛到对我今天就完生交了。3节我把没了3查了，共穷成来nam家了，说完的沙朗破完就完生交了。牛郎破完他就这把生交了，打算的呢准备就嘛到对我今天就完生交了。3节我把没了3查了，共穷成来上坡了，说完的沙朗破完就完生交了，牛郎破完他就这把生交了，打算的呢准备就嘛到对我今天就完生交了。3节我把没了3查了，成来东周去家了，说完的沙朗破完就完生交了，牛郎破完他就这把生交了，打算的呢准备就嘛到对我今天就完生交了。3节我把没了3查了，共就定正中的了，说完的沙朗破完就完生交了，牛郎破完他就这把生交了，打算的呢准备就嘛到对我今天就完生交了。3节我把没了3查了，杨正去讲真了，说完的沙朗破完就完生交了，牛郎破完他就这把生交了，打算的呢准备就嘛到对我今天就完生交了。3节我把没了3查了，定正去年嘛了，说完的沙朗破完就完生交了，牛郎破完他就这把生交了，打算的呢准备就嘛到对我今天就完生交了。3节我把没了3查了。恰达别没讲真了，说完的沙朗破完就完生交了，牛郎破完他就这把生交了，打算的呢准备就嘛到对我今天就完生交了。3节我把没了3查了，集中打马当查了，说完的沙朗破完就完生交了，牛郎破完他就这把生交了，打算的呢准备就嘛到对我今天就完生交了。3节我把没了3查了，俺天上就完播了，说完的沙朗破完就完生交了，牛郎破完他就这把生交了。打算的呢准备就嘛到对我今天就完生交了。3节我把没了3查了，吃进罗州讲真了，说完的沙朗破完就完生交了，牛郎破完他就这把生交了，打算的呢准备就嘛到对我今天就完生交了。3节我把没了3查了，人今天本自己了，说完 Salam Powan Jumar Sinjalo, Nyolam Powen Kaju Druba Sinjalo, Dazon Dene Zimpe Jumodo, Dewa Junde Jivar Sinjalo, Sanjo Pamela Chan Salo Kunjo Tuki Nimala Soande, Salam Powan Jumar Sinjalo, Nyolam Powen Kaju Druba Sinjalo. Dazon Dene Zimpe Jumada, Dewa Junde Jivar Sinjalo, Sanjo Pamela Chan Salo, Ojin Dindo Jila Soande, Salam Powan Jumar Sinjalo, Nyolam Powen Kaju Druba Sinjalo, Dazon Dene Zimpe Jumada, Dewa Junde Jivar Sinjalo. Sanjio Pamela Samsalo, Jibsun Kuncho Chujala Soande, Salam Puan Jumar Sinjalo, Nyolam Powen Kaju Drubar Sinjalo, Dazon Dene Simpe Jumoto, Dewa Jindo Jivar Sinjalo, Sanjio Pamela Samsalo, Jimcho Chujalo Jula Soande, Salam Puan Jumar Sinjalo. Nyolam Powen Kaju Drubar Sinjalo, Dazon Dene Simpe Jumoto, Dewa Jindo Jivar Sinjalo, Sanjio Pamela Samsalo, Tiptin Shivalo Jula Soande, Salam Puan Jumar Sinjalo, Nyolam Powen Kaju Drubar Sinjalo, Dazon Dene Simpe Jumoto, Dewa Jindo Jivar Sinjalo. Sanjio Pamela Chan Salon Sumi Chujin Junela Soande, Salam Puan Jumar Sinjalo, Nyolam Powen Kaju Drubar Sinjalo, Dazon Dene Simpe Jumata, Dewa Jindo Jivar Sinjalo, Sanjio Pamela Samsalo, Chinjin Zawela Mala Soande, Salam Puan Jumar Sinjalo. Nyolam Powen Kaju Drubar Sinjalo, Dazon Dene Simpe Jumata, Dewa Jindo Jivar Sinjalo, Sanjio Pamela Chan Salo. Hexum Kaya Pargayin, Teta Mukpa Chapchi to Chishos.
I'm going to do the ejection of consciousness with 3 recitations of Hik, so please keep your visualization current.
接下来我们要练习怎么样把我们提升我们的明点配合这个 Hik 这个字，然后请大家来仔细清晰的来做观想。
Dikten Jumba Zo Zeba Me, Tumin Chua Malun Jun Zeba, Gome Donga Juba Nam Jeja, Sanje Zeba Me La Cham Salo, Namo Bangava, Aparamadayan Jana Sambana, Zita Tenzoranzaya, Dadangadaya, Arde, Samya Sambadaya, Dia, the Om Penya Penya Mahabi, Aparamadapen Jana Sambaro, the Om Savasankara Parakede, the Madangana Samangada Supa, Basha, the Mahana, Parvara Sova, Om Amaranand Venda 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 Sova. Om Amaranand Vendaya Sova Devandaya Nyodada Zeba Mengon Rajanan Roa Chijamaluba Tisalango Barsho. That taken Polong Senatary. Then Jimatanga so Yani Yanto. Jango yorwa. Tatu so ishira mando tren hado. Tatwa reni jiksena chosare. Tanan samya. Teni sido tela. Yanjar jantanga kola shipcha tang. Teni kazan labang po ngaba yorwa. Himbo jinzin tuji jao josa ta yinga chede tamna ta. Poasena kanto go yore ti kola la yata chitang simpo jinjin ke kapsu temram ke kola ngatu yore ma hiwa kapsu kanto yongore ti kola ngatu ji yore 남주에나 때 따뜻한 포와데 뭐 hit사고 값도 된 어두도 로고도와 은에서는 어두도 다 마시고 오는 시고요. 아, temrangu 고라 간도 연구요. 다단히 희는데 약을 와. hit사도 말 고고 말와. 지당 건라단도 세나다 디 힘보 진진 값도 돼 로고도와. temrangu 거트. 디콜라스로 노도 됐었어요.
So that concludes the oral transmission for the poa, the polung. And so now you guys have to keep practicing, keep up the practice of this again and again. And today we don't have a lot of time for questions after this first session. I'll allow for 1 or 2 questions now before we break. And then we'll meet again in the afternoon to continue practicing the poa together, and that will open up the forum for more detailed explanation on the actual way in which we go through the practice. And then also I will talk about the 5th type of poa that I was speaking of yesterday. The 5th type of poa is when you do poa for other people. It's called taking others under your care, those who have died, and doing poa for them, for the deceased, which is known as the hook of compassion. And this poa practice, I'll explain to you, like, how do you do it? If you want to do poa for someone that is deceased, how do you do that? What exactly do you have to do? I'll explain that. And then usually, so when a person dies, then you have to do you're telling them, you're introducing them to what they're going through in the stages of dissolution of the dying state, and you're kind of like giving them kind of an explanation of what to expect and what's going on as they're dying. But although we have the tradition of reading to the deceased people, like the descriptions, like the Tibetan Book of the Dead, where you're describing the stages, but actually speaking, it's better if you are familiar with the stages of dissolution and the stages of the dying experience. It's better if you're familiar with that now, like before you die. Definitely don't need to wait until you're dead to have somebody read it to you. It's much better if we can start learning this now so that we can be more prepared. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that today also, like the stages of dissolution and all of that happens when a person dies.
那到这边我们破瓦的口传算是圆满了，接下来就是要靠大家自己反复的这个练习。今天早上的时间不够，所以没有办法让大家问太多问题，或许可以问1-2个问题。下午呢，有的时间2点我们再回来的时候再详细解释其他的部分，并且大家可以提问题。我也会再讲解第5种破瓦，也就是为他人修的这种破瓦，就是就是照顾其他人，用那个大悲的这个钩来照顾其他人的这种破瓦。当人过世的时候，我们可以告诉他所经过这个消融的这个阶段，过世的阶段是什么，可以预期到什么样的景象对亡者来做解释。那当然自己在生的时候呢，对这些阶段有清楚的了解，这是很重要的，这样在自己过世的时候就不必依赖别人来跟我们解释提醒了。
Okay, question.
I'm not really sure where the lineage prayer goes. It seemed that I thought you did that first, but then and I had a hard time following you so fast, but it seemed that we started with the visualization first and then did the lineage prayer. Is that?
Tambo mepa gongore, mepa the gomte sargde. Tani ta po parya ka hon tane tin sonde den rogwa. Tani sonde de ma cha chang lo. Sonde de lo cha de tarang tu chu tong ba des den mepa de yang jar sa ta. Tani ya par den gore. Mari kona la yeme pa marko ti hode tukpa tek. Ko san ti pat mek pa gom te es de. Pacho te ta ti sonde te jin ko yo re. Pacho te dino la chang hik chang ti me do. Rio Mare. Jalan dari sapu yo mare. Kowar sam city parto lo na tanates de gongore. Teni ti laju son de ma cha sang lo cha ti me pa de yang jar sa ta ne teni ya par.
Actually, it is in the right order. So what you do is first you start immediately with the visualization and you're reading aloud through that visualization, which in the English version ends on page 6. And then after you complete that line, then you just meditate for a moment, kind of getting that visualization clear in your mind. And then you go straight to the lineage prayer and you read through the whole lineage prayer. And then you go again, before you do the hik and the ka and that visualization where you're ejecting the consciousness, you've recited the lineage prayer once. Then again, just kind of re-strengthen your visualization, kind of like just take a moment to again bring yourself back to the visualization. And then you do the hik and the ka, which isn't actually in the text, it's just what you know. So then after you've done the lineage prayer, then you say hik and you do the ejecting of consciousness and bring it back with the ka.
刚刚的问题是说，观想跟这个传承上师跟我们做这个引导这个明点往上的这个之间怎么样配合，不是很清楚。那上师的回答是说，一开始你清楚的观想就是中文法本的第1页跟第2页，那么这个之后呢，然后再休息一下，然后让自己的这个头脑是很清楚的，再来念这个破瓦传承的祈请文，从第3页开始一直到第9页上面，这边念完了之后呢，然后你就开始来做这个引导这个意识明点往上的这个练习 hik， 然后3次或7次，然后再向下嘎，这样子反复的3次。那么这样之后呢，再往下念短的这个传承上师祈请文第9页中间到第10页的中间，这样之后再练习一次明点上跳的动作，然后之后就反复的第9页、第10页、第9这个短的传承上师祈请文，这样念完之后再练习那个明点上提，这样子重复，这样子是这样子的这个步骤。
我想问一下那个拉玛，拉玛说那个我们练这个明点，久了我们自己会觉得有成就。那有的时候我们不能常常亲近上师，那我们怎么知道我们练对，或是练错
？So earlier you mentioned that once you practice, you would know the sign whether you have done it right or not. But we cannot possibly be close to a teacher all the time. So how can we be sure are we practicing the right way or not, or have we achieved the sign or not?
对了，这整个节奏引把当，你知道不？这弄着上忙不有嘛，对吧？这没把这打老板那一。teni ti mekpa te long tang chapchik to ya te pando ya te ri tele hira norsa yo mare teni ta te zamchang la kaxie la jechong ni ti zhasi gari zhasi sene mangbu sen ro mare zawa ma ka kaku teni nyonyong zha len ro ri kaxie la teni chusi tong gari kaxie ngo na gari jachok ma sene zangja ma chung chung nyom chung chung tende yang le lao su zhok cho tende yung gore te so ten po wa jang wa ka dan da ore teni yena yang te ta te jong sa du teni chuni jang ma go wa tende ma re te yang karo yang ni yang du jin so de go yo re.
The POA practice isn't complicated like other development stage and completion stage practices, and so there isn't a lot of possibility for making mistakes or in the POA practice it's very straightforward. All you do is you just follow the visualization, and with the breath combined then you do the ejecting of consciousness, and so there's not really anywhere you could make a mistake on it, unlike in other practices. So as far as what signs you might want to look for, the signs are basically like some people will have like at the crown of their head, like right where the crown chakra is, like the hair might like kind of get loose and come out. Not a lot of hair, you won't lose a lot of hair, just a strand or two. And then other people have the pus coming out at the top, or like, you know, like, this is it's not exactly pus, it's like lymph fluid. That's the Tibetan word, chuser. It's just like liquid, you know, like little liquid or water like coming from the top. It's not really water. It's a chuser means like lymphatic fluid. Just a little fluid anyway might come out of the top, just a little bit. Or your head might hurt, you might have a headache, and then the reason the poa here is called jaktuma, it means the inserting a blade of grass. So a thin blade of grass could be actually inserted through the crown chakra too. So those are all signs of accomplishing, or not accomplishing, that's not the word he used. These are all signs of becoming adept at the poa. But even once you've gotten the signs, it doesn't mean you can completely stop thinking about poa and stop practicing it. You still need to remind yourself and keep it fresh in your practice.
那么刚刚的这个问题呢，回答是破瓦比起我们修升起次第跟圆满次第来讲呢，破瓦是单纯许多。那不是像修生圆次第比较容易出错。破瓦你只要配合它的这个观想以及呼吸的话，不太容易出错的话，是不太容易出错的。那至于你讲到征兆，什么样的征兆，有可能有不同的征兆，就是在这个顶冠这里啊，泛穴这里的头发可能有一些松动，可能会掉几根一两根头发这样子。那或者是说有一些一点点的液体湿湿的这样会流出来，或者有些人会头痛。然后我们第四个就是说加珠玛，加珠玛的意思就是插草，就是你有一个细的草呢是可以插进这个头顶的，这些都是征兆。当你有了这些征兆的之后呢，并不表示说你就不必再练习的，还是必须经常的这样子来反复练习。
Yeah.
刚才那个问题，那个练完祈请长的祈请文以后，就推送那个名点，那个 hit 跟那个 God， 做完以后呢，就是说还有再念一次短的，是不是？短了以后，那是不是再推送一次名点？然后呢，我们就要融入自己的，融入什么？那个后面我不清楚。
So the question was, well, can you repeat the process of doing this lineage prayer and then practicing the transferring the bindu?
Te katse lo de ngarang larale, tu larale yore. Ngarang katse lo bari lam songa. Sondep je pa te think tangbo je lo, te jina pa cho think. Ta tenga na som serewa. Ngune se na ti sondep ri ji la pa cho think dune se na cho yore. Te se tang ma na ko ta nda de. So an da de se yore.
Pa cho ti.
Think sam tang dune la so pa se cho yore. Tene ti sondep du pa te lo te ji la yang pa cho think ka shi se. Yang jar sondep du pa te lo. Ta tende se ne yang de tang ma bo. Ti katse lo mo lo te so su tu so ta jure. Tene jiman cham ya ko sa ta cham ya bu kap su tene dambo ba me do to hyone ran la tem so on sam ba si. Tu chu te stong ba. Ti ran yan che ba men jo so on sam ba si. Tene jok tene jing do wa. Wa ba me la chan sa chi ka yen do te lo tene ni ba ka shi lo mo at lo ya re.
So the amount of time that you are allotting to the full round of your practice of this poa, it's totally up to you how much time you want to put into it, and that there's no like set number of times that you should like limit yourself to ejecting the consciousness visualization. It really just depends on how you're going to divide the time of the practice depending on how much time you have for that session. For example, like you do the long lineage prayer once, and then you go and you do the hik and the visualization of ejecting the consciousness. And I said 3 times, every 3 times, then you go back and you do the short lineage prayer once. But actually, you don't have to only do it 3 times. You could go on do it like 7 times or however many times until you feel more strongly like you've gotten a little bit more practice at that. Because really, like, the more times you practice it, the more likely you are to have more signs coming quickly. So, you know, as many times as you have time for. So like it could be 3 times of going through the stages of the hik and the ka, or it could be 7 or however many, several times. But each time you like take a break with the short lineage prayer and you go back. Then when you're ready to conclude that session of practice at the end of that stage, then you, as I said before, you visualize that Buddha Amitabha is above the crown of your head. He melts into light, dissolves into you. Rest for a moment, and then arise into the form of Buddha Amitayus, the Buddha of limitless longevity. And then at the end of your text, there's a 4-line verse of prayer, and then the recitation of the longevity mantras of Amitayus, and then you do the dedication prayers.
所以这个时间长短练习的次数多少是没有定数的，以自己的时间为主。那开始的这讲到是观想的部分，然后在长的传承上师祈请文之后，念完到第9页的这上面的时候，你就开始做 hik 这个练习。那这样3次或7次，次数不定，不是说本来是讲3次，不是说你只能练3次，而是说你有时间的话，你可以多练几次，让自己觉得比较熟悉了。这样子练习一轮之后呢，接下来从第9页的中间的短的传承上师祈请文，这样念到第10页的中间那里，念了1次之后，再来一轮的这个 hik 这个明点的这个推送。念完之后，你要再继续的话，就再从第9页的中间那边短的上师传承上师祈请文，一直念到第10页的中间。那样练一次完之后，再练习一轮的那个 hik， 就这样反复。那到最后呢，你如果说练习的次数能够多的话，不是3次，而是7次的话，这样也很好。你这比较容易，自己比较熟悉的话，比较容易成功。那么一直到最后，你到就观想这个佛顶，这个阿弥陀佛融入自身，然后再转化成长寿佛之后呢，然后再念着这长寿佛的咒语，最后再做回向，这样子程序是这样子的。
大家。你搞过有的，可咱老用，或者是咱们讲话没办法说的是吧？去做跟咱们引导，他是把马上话的做，破不了我其实有的是有的吧。
You need both of these because, like I was saying yesterday, Poa is specifically known as the practice designed for those who have who are like lesser experience and lesser degree of accomplishment in their practices. And so like it's something that even if you haven't brought your other practices to some degree of consummation or accomplishment, you can still like gain signs and accomplishment through the Poa. So it's both of them are necessary, but Poa will help you if you're kind of like not an accomplished practitioner.
所以刚刚的问题是说，文殊阎摩尼的法跟这个破瓦的法，两者是文殊阎摩尼可以取代破瓦的法呢，还是说两个互有互补的？那回答是像昨天讲的，破瓦是对于是很普化的一个修行法门，甚至连顿根器的人，或者是修行没有什么样的特别成就的人都可以练习的一个法门，都可以 练习的，所以这个是两者是不冲突的，这两者都是必须的，只是每个人的修行的程度不一样，根基不同，会有不同。
Okay, take lunch break. Thank you, everybody.
那我们中午休息到2点 ，so we return again at 2 o'clock. As